confirmed reports, and look, I've been there and done that 15 years ago when there were unconfirmed reports out of Shreveport, Louisiana, that Terry Bradshaw had died when he hadn't. But both ABC and CBS affiliates, WTAE and KDKA, respectively, in Pittsburgh, reporting that Steelers legend Franco Harris has died just days short of the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, the play that made him a household name during his rookie season with the Steelers. He was iconic, is iconic, always will be iconic. And I got the text from Michael David Smith about 15 minutes ago, and I about fell down.
Yeah.
No indication of any illness.
Right. No rumors, anything out there. Yeah.
See him every year flying home from the Super Bowl. We're always on the same plane flying home from the Super Bowl. Extremely nice, humble, down-to-earth guy.
Very.
You know, when you're a kid, and I've explained this before, for me, the moment that the hook was set as far as pro football was concerned was the Immaculate Reception play, because we had a house full of people watching it. We were the only folks in the neighborhood who had that game. The grown-ups lost their minds, and that kind of got my attention. You know, I'm screwing around with Hot Wheels, and all these people are jumping up and down and hugging each other. They're acting the ways I don't see grown-ups act. Well, this is why. This play, this moment. And, you know, it transformed the team. It transformed the city. It laid the foundation for the Super Bowl championship 2 years later. He was the MVP of that game against the Minnesota Vikings, which was a very difficult experience for me personally. If you know my own preferences, for whatever reason, I didn't lock on to the local team like a dumbass, like I should have.
Seriously.
Like everybody else in town did, 60 miles away from Pittsburgh. But I love Franco Harris. So I'm just stunned, Chris. And again, it's confirmed with his family by both WTAE TV and KDKA in Pittsburgh. I wanted to get confirmation directly from the Steelers, but I think unfortunately, because I wish it wasn't true, we're safe to trust the two affiliates who have confirmed it with his family in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's shocking, like you said. I mean, when I was walking in here in the office to see that text from you, you know, and just have those thoughts. I mean, yeah, usually there's a little warning. 72 just seems too young this day and age in 2022. So I don't think any of us were thinking, you know, like you said, I didn't hear any rumors that there was, he hadn't been feeling well. Right? The last week he's been very relevant because of the, you know, Immaculate Reception anniversary. So he's been on a lot of NFL football highlight shows, and there's been a lot of talk of that. And he's just the legend of legends. Forget about the state of Pennsylvania, where he was at Penn State, a legend, goes to Pittsburgh Steelers, legend there. He's, you know, for a kid like me, 1980, you know, when I started to learn about football, 1984, 85, 86, and then, you know, dig into the history, I mean, 32, 12, 75, 88 on the Steelers, black and yellow. I mean, those are the first guys I learned about in the history of football. So, like, my early football recollections, one of my dad's greatest stories he ever tells, and for playing in a preseason game, was against the Steelers in 1979, and how he was crapping his pants against that team. I mean, he's not only an individual icon, but he was part of something that was bigger than that. He's really an NFL icon as far as individually, but then that team and how special they were, and the first dynasty in the Super Bowl era. So, yeah, it's a shame to see. And he is such a nice human being. Been around Franco Harris a few times in my life, and he just was always the calm, you know, wise, older man figure who was soft-spoken and just so easy to talk to. So that's a heartbreaker. It really is. And especially with the jersey retirement thing on the horizon on Saturday, I think that just adds like an extra dagger into your soul here, the fact that he didn't get to enjoy that one last moment.
And this is a team that rarely retires jerseys.
Right.
And it was long overdue for 32 to be set aside forever. I just, you know, this is hard for me. You know, we're professionals and we try to hold it together. This is taking every ounce of whatever limited skill I may have to hold it together, because I got a lot of memories rushing back.
I know you do, man.
You know,
it's all right. Don't worry. It's all good. I mean, my early recollection remembers this guy. I can't imagine you. I know it's bringing a lot of emotion to you because you grew up watching this happen. He was certainly like when you little Mike Florio pain in the butt, peeing in a garbage can. Yeah, Franco Harris was the man. He was the man. And, then your parents were around then at that time. So it all comes together. I get it, Mike. I get it. It's a tough one.
Thank you. You're not making it any better.
Well, hey, I'm trying to give the audience a little, to explain to you. I understand. It's emotional for me with a legend like this.
And what was so cool, he was a child of World War II.
Right.
His dad was stationed in Italy. His mother was Italian.
Yep.
So the big thing when he was a rookie, and this kind of popped up out of nowhere, Franco's Italian Army.
Yeah.
Which was so freaking cool.
Right.
Yeah,
I know. That was, it's again, another thing that I learned early on. Franco's Italian Army, and me, a guy from North Jersey, he was loved in that area because of that. And then, of course, you add on, being at Penn State and Pittsburgh and a part of that football team, and then just embodying everything you want, as a man and as a football player. I think that's the other thing that's adds to the lure of that Pittsburgh Steelers football team. They had a little personality with Terry Bradshaw, but for the most part, they seemed like hard-working. We're just going to come to work and beat your butt and not talk a whole lot about it, and we'll see you on the football field. And then when it's all said and done, we'll be holding the Lombardi Trophy. And for football there for 8 or 10 years, those guys were front and center, and that's where it's shocking because this is a true legend, Hall of Famer, icon. 32 in black and yellow is kind of says it all. You never needed to know what that meant, and it's a sad day to see him go.
And not just a guy who was responsible for one play, but he had the full career. 9-time Pro Bowler, the Super Bowl MVP, part of the 4 teams that won Super Bowls in Pittsburgh, and really did. I can't even say resurrect a franchise that had been down on its luck. It had never been good. The Steelers had never been anything. They had been around for 4 decades, and they had been just at the bottom of a league that didn't have a whole lot of teams in it. They were just perpetually not good, and he was a big part of this ascendance of the Steelers into becoming a national team, a team that contends far more often than not, a team that just shows up and wins. And they had a long dry spell between number 4 and number 5, but they still were good far more often than not. And he was part of what made the Steelers who they currently are. Average 5.6 yards per carry as a rookie. That's amazing.
Amazing.
Back in the days when there wasn't a whole lot of passing, so they know you're going to run the ball, and you're still averaging 5.6 yards per carry in that era. Pre-rule changes, pre-opening up the offense. So you probably had 9 men in the box back in the early 70s trying to stop the running backs because that's what they were going to do time and time and time again. And he played football at a time when it was so much more brutal and physical, and they're playing on that green cement at Three Rivers Stadium, and so many other stadiums had that green cement, the stuff that your dad had to deal with. And I've marveled so many times in the past at how he's even able to walk after getting slammed into that concrete covered by, a half inch of green padded carpet. Unbelievable what those guys went through in the 70s, and he was one of the best of the decade. And it just really is stunning. It's going to be one of those moments I'll never forget, picking up my phone, where I was when I saw the text message, because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. And I still don't want to believe it. I want it to be wrong. I want it to be a mistake. But again, more and more reports coming in that it is indeed true. So I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's just like
hard. It's going to be hard for the next hour and 45 minutes.
It kicks your butt. It kicks your butt. It's like we said. He's part of. Not only is he just such a huge entity itself, he's a part of something that's so much bigger too. And he was such a big part of that. And I think that's where it gets you too. You just start to wait. These are These are the invincible macho men 70s Steelers. What? They don't die like that. I mean, that's kind of, they're like gods. That's where it's shocking. And I never put myself in the thought process of, oh gosh, some of those guys aren't going to be here one day, just because when I think about them, I still think about them in Super Bowl, 14, running up the middle trying to find a hole. So I never sometimes think of those guys as even old at times in my life, even though I know that's the reality. But like, what a legend. And then could have played at any era, Mike. I think that's the other thing that, you were kind of articulating there. Doesn't matter. He could have been a pass receiving, dual threat running back. He was very natural in the pass game. I mean, then could run for power, had enough speed to break out in the open. I mean, for a running back too, Mike, to just the play in that era, as brutal as it was, like you talked about, and then for him to play as long as he did, that's the other thing that's kind of shocking too, when you pull up the stats and you start to dive into it a little bit. The guy in 1983 in year 12, right, ran for 1,000 yards. That's impressive. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable. That speaks to the professional, how he kept himself in shape, and the specimen he was as a person. So there's a lot to talk about with Franco Harris. The person, the player, are special, and that's where it's really it's a day that hurts. There's no doubt, and the whole NFL community will be mourning after this one.
One of the things Tony Dungy always said about Franco Harris, and it goes back to the Immaculate Reception, that once because Tony Dungy didn't show up in Pittsburgh until the late 70s. He was in college at the University of Minnesota when the Immaculate Reception happened, or he may have still been in high school. I mean, it was in that window where he was not yet in the NFL. But when he got to Pittsburgh, he quickly understood why and how Franco made that play, because that's how he practiced. He was always hustling, always going toward the ball wherever the ball may be. That's just who he was, and that's how he was in position to make this play. He's going toward the ball. Maybe the ball's not going to come my way, but I'm going to keep moving in the direction of the football, and it popped into his hands, and there he went. And there's the iconic statue of him. I just saw it 2 days ago at the Pittsburgh airport. Always smile when I see it, and it's amazing how that moment, just and
I
think
Pittsburgh on the map.
His personality, who he became, what that play means to football, what that play means to the Steelers, and how he's always going to be connected to it. And it happened at a time, again, for me, where the NFL was new and fresh, and he becomes this larger-than-life figure. Your superheroes don't die. I mean, that's what's so hard for me to process. Yep. And, kids today who follow the NFL, if you're a fan of Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, I mean, 50 years from now, or hopefully longer than that, you're going to have to deal with the same thing. And it's not easy to get your brain around the idea that these athletes that you view as superheroes for what they can do on a football field are mortal. I think that's really
that's where it hits.
That's really why I'm so rattled and discombobulated by the news, because it's, even though I'm a grown-ass man and know full well how the circle of life works, sometimes you don't want to accept that it does.
No.
Sometimes you can't process that there isn't an exception for someone like Franco Harris.
Yeah, I know. That's where it is shocking, because you got that image and just the toughness and the specimen of a man, and he just embodies so much that, men in America shoot for as they grow up, with to be a legend in football and be a Franco Harris. And it's just him, Mean Joe Green. I mean, it seems immortal. That's why it's shocking. And the reality of it is, like you said to start the show, it's 72 years old. It just doesn't seem that old this day and age. That's where it's shocking too. And usually you get a little bit of a warning to kind of get your body and soul prepared for these type of things, and we didn't get that.
Nothing.
That's where it's shocking.
I had no idea.
Right.
Even if I don't know that there was an illness. There was never any talk.
I don't.
And you know what? If he had been sick, Chris,
he wouldn't tell anybody, right?
That he chose to keep it to himself, to keep it private, to not be the center of attention, to not be a big deal, to not make it about himself. It doesn't surprise me at all. And, the other reason, as I'm sitting here processing it and thinking about it, because he wasn't in the public eye after his football career ended, you don't think of him as anything but Franco Harris, the football player.
Yeah.
Franco Harris, Superman without a cape, right? Franco Harris, the guy who pulled off the Immaculate Reception and was the 9-time Pro Bowler and the Super Bowl MVP and the Hall of Famer. Like Terry Bradshaw, we've seen him for decades since he stopped playing every Sunday. Lynn Swann was in other things on TV, involved at USC as the athletic director. I mean, around as part of the sport. For Franco Harris, that book closed, and that makes it, if that makes any sense at all.
No,
it
just
makes it even harder.
You're right.
Because you just, when you see him, it's and the other thing too.
He didn't look old. His beard looked great.
Like,
I mean, everything.
Like both he and Tony Dorsett had that thing in common where for a very long time they looked like they could suit up and still play.
Right.
Like years and years and years after they stopped playing, they looked like they could suit up and still play, and he still had that look to him. For the guy who went through that incredibly brutal and physical era of football, he looked like he could still play.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a lot of things there. It was a specimen. You could see when I would see him at Super Bowls. I mean, you understood why he was one of the best running backs in the history of football. His big man, square shoulders, long arms, big hands. I mean, he just was. You could understand. Oh, that's how he could take the pounding of the '70s and the Cowboys and Randy White and Jim Jeffcoat and Ed Too Tall Jones. No wonder because yes, he was one of those guys that just came out of the womb ready to play football. And to your point, Mike, you're right. I mean, he still looks so good. Even as an older man, the beard was perfect. Everything there to where that's where I think it just adds to the shock. And then. It just is. It sucks. It really does. Franco Harris, legend. Steelers. I mean, legendary franchise. You just never like to see this as a football fan, but as a human, he's one of those humans that was very easy to root for and kind of lit up a room when he was in there.
After the Super Bowl in Minneapolis, my brother-in-law was with us. His son. My son was there. We're getting ready to fly back, and Franco's in the area of the gate. And my wife's like, "Go talk to him. Go talk to him. Go talk to him." He's like, I don't want to bother him. Like, I'm always very big on not bothering people.
Yeah.
And I don't mind if people come talk to me because, like, oh, hey, if you want to talk to me, that's on you. If you want to waste your life talking to me, that's on you. But I don't want to bother. It's like I don't want to bother him, and I don't know what to say to him. Probably piss my pants. I mean, because I'm that little kid. It's like it's Franco, right? Like it's like the Joe Green commercial. Like I don't know what to say to him. I know I'm grown, but it's Franco, for crying out loud. So my brother-in-law, who'll talk to anybody under any set of circumstances, went and talked to him, and he's talked to him for like a long time. And he finally comes back and goes, "I couldn't get away from him." like it wasn't perfunctory. Some guy comes up to me and wants to talk to me because I'm Franco Harris. He engaged him in a real conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm even more pissed at myself now that I didn't take advantage of the opportunity.
Seriously.
Like, I don't want to bother Franco.
I don't
want to bother Franco.
Yeah.
But he was always very nice. I mean, I'd speak to him and he'd speak, and but he was always very nice. There were multiple times we flew back on the same plane from the Super Bowl, and I am numb. And it's good. It's good to have a friend to talk to and talk through this because, man, I really had for about 60 to 75 seconds in the final 10-minute countdown before the show started. I really thought I'm not going to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we just go. And it's like wait a minute. You're supposed to pretend to be a professional. You can get through this. So thank you, Chris, for helping me through it.
You're the man,
We're going
Mike.
to take a break, and when we return, we're going to press the reset button and focus on things happening currently in the NFL. But Franco Harris, his family, his friends, his teammates, his colleagues, his fans, they'll be in our thoughts forever. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.